Peace, everybody. Welcome to another episode of On Tilt. I'm Julius here with Mama Brown. How you doing today?
I'm good, Julius. How are you?
I'm good. I'm doing
Good.
Yeah.
Hey, look, I always ask this question. How was your weekend? How was your week for you so far?
Yeah, it's been good. I'm learning a lot about myself as a leader, right? A lot of growth is happening with our organization, bringing on a lot of new staff people, and that's a great thing. And we're trying to formalize a lot of different things, formalize a lot of processes and structures. And I kind of fell into this mindset or this place of like just falling into the structure and being like, well, I'm gonna let the structure and the process figure it out. And I was kind of like, I never neglect people, but I was losing a little bit of the empathy and the compassion when people are like, hey, how do I navigate this process? It's there and it's outlined for me, but I still need like some guidance and some assistance. So it just opened my eyes to like processes are not the end all be all. It's like without people, you can have no processes, right? So it's like people all the way. That's where God has me right now.
Oh, wow. That is awesome. That's awesome. Yesterday I was able to sit on a panel discussion with Carlo University, and it was incredible. We talked about policing on college campuses and some of the things that we can, do differently, where we're not weaponizing police officers, but we're putting a little bit more control back in the hands of universities to be more impactful and not punitive. It was an awesome discussion. Hopefully you get a chance to check it out. They're Take Action Mon Valley, Fawn and Olivia. They both helped sponsor this, and Dr. Scott moderated it. It was just awesome. The panel, Dr. Henderson and future Dr. Mays sat on the panel as well. And when I tell you that discussion was fire, what came out of it, students. We talked about students, actually. I know we're going to go to our silent moment of prayer, but we actually talked about students in a criminal justice field, being able to utilize their talents and skills in helping keep the campus safe. That's straight out the Marcus Jalen Brown Foundation, guys. But incorporating your resources that you already have. And we talked about therapists and how, there were the need for therapists. But we're asking, where are you looking? Because you have graduate students. There's a lot of people. You have your faith-based communities that can help. So the panel discussion was excellent. And I told them, and we're here. I said, matter of fact, I'm here. I said, I've been knocking on the door. Hey, let me come in as an adjunct professor. I'm right here. So people are here. The question is, are you open? Is the door open? Are you widening the pool? And are you accepting the resources that's right before your eyes?
Mm-hmm.
It was powerful. I enjoyed it. I look forward to doing more of them. But before we start, we should go into a moment of prayer because, again, this is Suicidal Month, and we're covering victims of suicide and those who are contemplating, survivors of suicide. We're covering the whole gamut that's associated with suicide and just people in general. People, we're praying for you. Julius and we're both prayer people. We're people of prayer. And so, this moment of silence is for this moment, but trust that we're praying for you.
All right, welcome back, y'all. So, as Mama Brown said, we are still what we're right in the middle now of Suicide Awareness and Prevention Month. So, we still want to bring awareness to this topic, particularly for Black and Brown folks. We need to be talking about it more. We need to be knowledgeable and educated. So, today we're going to talk about the intersections of suicide awareness, prevention, mental health, and social media. Y'all, right? As we're being broadcasted on Facebook, you can catch us on YouTube as well. So it's social media plays a huge role in
Absolutely.
mental health and wellness, suicide awareness and prevention. So we talked a little bit in pre-show about this being such a diverse, robust topic. So today we're going to get into a lot of it, y'all, with today's discussion. So, Mama Brown, as I always do, just want to give you an opportunity to kind of kick us off and what your initial thoughts are when you think of those intersections.
Wow. Let me just say, I never thought about those intersections until it's been brought to my attention that social media does play. I mean, I know it plays a huge role. We talked about social media and peer pressure, and we kind of touched on it a little bit last week, but we never really touched on the role that social media plays, whether impactful or hurtful, but and what their positions are. You never really discuss, what Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and some of these other search engines positions are when it comes to people posting and expressing themselves through social media. So I don't know about you guys, our viewers, but let me tell you, when you journey with us, you're taking a ride with us on new discoveries, new insights. We're with you. That's why I love this show about being on tilt, because we're constantly chasing after balance, understanding that, balance is one of those things that's hard to reach. As you can see, even in things like social media platforms, it's hard to get a balance, whereas you're giving freedom of speech to your customers, your clients of your page, at the same time having a moral, ethical responsibility. So it's what is balance? That's why we're on tilt, because we too always want to try to reach that place of balance, understanding even at that is hard and difficult at times.
Hmm. Yeah, and just to follow up and kind of piggyback on that, we want to invite y'all to join the conversation. So if you have any thoughts, any ideas, any articles, whatever you want to share, drop it in the comment section. We want to hear how you engage with people when it comes to mental health, suicide awareness, and wellness on your social media platforms. What are some of your do's and don'ts, or what do you wish people did differently? Whatever your thoughts are, we want to welcome you to chime in, leave us a comment, and we'll make sure we stay engaged with you in the conversation. So let's start off, Mama Brown, talking about just our own personal, responsibility in the way that we navigate our own social media when it comes to mental health, wellness, suicide awareness, and prevention. What do you how do you navigate it? Like, do you wake up feeling like, okay, I have a responsibility to say certain things or to not say certain things when it comes to mental health and wellness overall, on your social media pages?
You know, my first introduction of that was when I was at Freedom Corner. And there, 100% hands down, I thought it was important that I use my platform to speak about my own journey and processing, what I was going through. I mean, who goes on a hunger strike for 237 days, and push back the plate? You know, Clearly there's some mental health issues going on. when you make that decision. I'm a very spiritual person, but I do not discount the mental health, you know, crisis I was in at the time, desperately wanting answers for my son. And so I had to be transparent on my page, to try to reach those who knew what I didn't know, who could give me information on what happened to my son. At the same time, I had to communicate to family who was following me on these platforms that, this is where I am, because they were worried about me. They probably thought it was after day 5, okay, we give her day 10. Okay, wait a minute. Day 15, wait a minute. Months now? This is, so I had a lot of concerned family members and friends that in the middle of COVID, the only way that they could, keep up with me and check in on my mental health, was through social media. So I personally tried to be as transparent as I could be, even at times showing, moments of my breakdowns and moments of me having, going to the hospital and the IVs in my arms and me laying in a hospital bed, which again, all of those things could be triggers to other people. And I'm thinking, and what our show is about from a social media perspective, they're they're like, is the image of her being in the hospital, is the image of her being on a hunger strike. It's very dangerous what I did. And will it trigger other people to follow and to do a hunger strike? You know, or does it insult those with eating disorders, you know, who struggle to just keep food in their system, or their self-image of who they are, when they look in the mirror. I've been ridiculed and questioned, called out on that. And I always had to defend my social justice platform, my First Amendment rights to protest, and peacefully by this form of protest, is should not be compared to someone with eating disorders. Those are two separate, you know um entities and crises going on, and it should be looked at separately. So yeah, it's so much to it, Julius.
And you make me think about Mama Brown, like the responsibility and who determines that responsibility, right? Because you're gonna have everyone on the outside telling you, Mama Brown, don't post that, or they'll just come right up and comment underneath it. What, you need to take this down, da, 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 right? Like from every different direction, because there, we live in this like the age of cancel culture. So you make you say one wrong thing, then people will try to get you canceled or try to, you know what I mean. Don't believe in this person. Don't follow them because they, whatever the case may be. So I see that part of it, and I also see another side of like, um, how is our content landing with other people? And I always struggle with that because we're the same, we're similar in that, Mama Brown. We're like transparent to just completely, full total transparency. So I'm the type of person where I'll go on Facebook and I'll write you a book, and it'll be, my deepest, darkest stuff, but I try to put it out there in a way. I didn't always do this. I try to put it out there in a way that there's a lesson in it. Like
Yeah.
there's, I don't put out just the like messages of hopelessness or messages of like, woe is me, I need your pity, like to where you gotta like hit me up like, man, are you okay? Like
Mhm.
I'm not putting it out there to get that kind of response. I'm putting it out there because I'm hoping that some other young black man or young black boy, or one of my elders sees it and is like, wow, I can't tell you, you probably experienced the same thing, Mama Brown, how many times somebody will message you or text you or call you and be like, thank you for sharing that message,
Mhm.
because it made me realize I wasn't alone. It made me
Absolutely.
realize I could share my story. So you could have that happen with the
Mhm.
same post and message, and then you could have another person right up under that comment or comes into your DM like, I didn't appreciate what you posted. It made me think about, a loved one that I lost. It's like it's never just black and white. So I mean, there have been many times where we've all done it. You type out the message, you got a whole post ready, then you're like delete.
Yes.
You know what I mean? You just, I mean,
I can spend hours on it.
yeah, right. I mean, and that's how I do, right? Like I really, I put my like little mental health messages
Yeah.
out, and for me, those messages, it's not just me like twiddling my thumbs, like, well, what kind of message am I going to put out today? They usually come from a place of pain or learning that I experience.
Mhm.
Like, not usually, they always come from something that's manifesting for me at the moment. So I'm like, let me try to package this, and that's therapy for me. It's therapy for me to like write that message out, work through that own personal challenge, put it out on social media, and then people are like, "Damn, oh my goodness, I'm literally just dealing with that." So it's like I know those messages need to be put out there, but like you said, there are other people that are like, "Hey, you being so transparent could trigger somebody who's not prepared or who's going through a place of like mourning or sadness." So it's like a double-edged sword we're kind of playing with social media.
Absolutely. We really are. And I would love for our viewers to chime in and tell us about some of the things that how they feel when they're on social media. Are there some triggering points? We have quite a bit of followers. And so some of our followers have experience with suicidal thoughts. And I'm curious to know, has my platform been a triggering factor in your life? We want to know. We want to engage with you all. Please comment and chime in because hey, look, it's on us to deal with these issues. We try to read, we try to look, we go to therapy, we do a lot of things, but it takes a community. It takes us coming together to talk about this and talk about the resources we have. And one of the resources is social media. It's not going anywhere. So, we have to know how to appropriately use it, knowing that we can't please everybody, but we would like to hear, might be some great suggestions that I might can incorporate in my own platform in my periods of being transparent. I'm a very transparent person. I like to talk things out. I like honesty. I like to get to the core of the matter. I'm not afraid. If I walk away, my heart broken, so what? I'd rather the truth than not have it at all. So I tend to be a transparent person because I want transparency in return. Now, with that said, my question to you, Julius, I have a question for you. Have you ever, in your period of being transparent, because this happened to me, where someone got offended, with you expressing yourself, that they contacted social media and asked them to remove the content and reported your content as being what's the word they
It's like it's something about against user guidelines or
yeah, something
something like that.
crazy. Yes, because they did not like what you were being transparent about. It wasn't against anyone. It was your own transparency about, I know some of the things that you've been transparent about on social media when it came to COVID and, finding yourself drinking a little bit more and, some of the things about suicide with your friend. It's several things that you've been very transparent about on social media. And in your wildest dreams, you wouldn't think that you being transparent about it would affect someone to the point that they would report you as negative content. That's another thing that we have to deal with, because that is triggering too. And it's like, I'm being transparent. Why am I getting this response back when this is my page? And we tend to think that we own our page.
Yeah, that's a great question. First, I'm gonna say all our social media friends ain't our friends. We know that. There is just some people just they're just watching. They keeping track. So, but I interestingly enough, I've never had that happen, and I think I know why, because I know why. I'll go. na- I'll get the thing, 100% of it, and then I'm like, I'm gonna do this at 95%. So
Mhm.
that 5% that I feel like I know is it'll poke, like, you know what I mean? It'll do a little more
Like
poke.
over the edge.
Yeah, like I'm like, all right, let me just I'm gonna pull it back. I'm gonna switch it up a little bit. So right, it hits, but it's not it's hitting like, it's not hitting the same way or the same nerve. So I'm always um I don't know if mindful is the word, to be transparent. Maybe fearful is
Okay.
part of it, right? Because I'm like, I don't even want to deal with that. But what did come up for me though is that I have had people, particularly men, particularly black men, who have been like, man, and I'm kind of paraphrasing, like, yeah, I wanna I wanna learn to kind of share, like tap into what you share, but sometimes I feel like, you might it might be a little too much. You know what I mean? Like kind of putting that type of perspective. So it makes me think like, damn, like, am I being too uh quote unquote emotional, right, as a black man? So
Wow.
some black men are receiving it in a way that's like freeing. They're like, all right, cool, hit me up, I appreciate this. And they may tell me something in confidence. You know what, one of your things inspired me to start taking care of myself better, or I got into therapy and it saved my relationship. Like they're sharing things like that privately with
Yeah.
me. But then
In
if
your
I
inbox. In
yeah,
your inbox.
DM. And if they go if I go on their page, it's like it's just business as usual, right? There's
Mhm.
no semblance of
No.
emotion, right? So the effect that those kind of interactions have had on me has made me, like, number one, feel um refreshed that it is resonating with some black men and just people in general. But then on the flip side of that coin, whenever I hear someone say like, oh, just be mindful, you may not want to share too much, it makes me like, okay, but why? Like, why?
Okay.
I
Yeah.
mean, why? Like, okay, if I share, all right, I'll put it like this. There have been times, and I haven't done this in a while, because of this,
Mhm.
where I have shared my own suicidal thoughts on my social media platform. And even when I do that, it's not just like, hey y'all, I'm suicidal, like dot dot dot. It's not like to where everyone is just frantic and like, oh my
Mhm.
goodness, we don't know what's happening. It's always been me being like, hey y'all, moment of transparency. I am struggling. I've tried this, and this.
Mhm.
Doesn't seem to be working. If you feel the need to connect with me, I could use some words of positivity. I'm gonna get through it. So it's always been from a place of like, I'm going to tap into my strength, and I
Mhm.
know I'm going to get through it. Not
Right.
just this like I'm throwing it out there to get to I don't want to worry people, right?
Mhm.
So there's still a piece of me that's like cleaning it up, right? I'm still cleaning it
Right.
up. So they're like, okay, he's struggling, but
Mhm.
he's all right. He didn't really seem like he was there, but there have been times where I have like really been there, but you read the message and you're like, okay, like he's there, but like he's okay. He'll be all right.
It brings me to a point. where we know some individuals who are very much more transparent than you and I are, to the fact that we have known individual, we're not going to say anyone's name, but we have known individuals who have actually invited us on the journey of their, you know, professing to commit suicide, or, you know, professing to attempt to commit suicide. Sorry about my wording. And those who invited us on a journey of saying, I just rather not be here. You know, we have friendships and connections to people who are, on social media, who are a lot more transparent than you and I. And we also have witnessed the responses they have gotten through their being transparent. And a lot of it is just people outpouring themselves, saying, call me, talk to me, call this hotline, call this person. So we've also seen where, you know, if social media starts to hinder that process, and Julie, I know you're going to be able to go in a little bit more about what are some of the things that social media are doing when they see these things happen. But if they start to um put constraints on how we share when it comes to things like that, for fear of it might be graphic or is for the content or whatever. But at the flip side of it is it's getting our attention, and a lot of us are saying we're right here, and we're saying we can be a resource, contact us. So we're being very helpful too. So, I just worry about, if we put constraints on, how will we then, as a community, help this person?
Hmm. Yeah, good point. So I think about a few different things that came up for me when you were sharing that. One is, you know, I'm with you, Mama Brown, trying to be mindful of my words, and it's such a sensitive subject matter and topic. I think about like severe mental illness, and this is coming from a social worker, who is always learning, y'all. So just know that I don't know everything about everything, and I would never profess to be in that space. But with severe mental illness, there could very well be a scenario where somebody is literally not fully cognizant of like what they're saying or what they're doing, um, because of because of the severe mental illness, because of a chemical imbalance, because of a trigger, because of substance use, or all those things, or substance misuse, all those things bottled into one. And we there's no way to really tell all that just through the screen. You know what I'm saying? So I think we might be like, oh, like, what, just hit me up, and that person may literally be having like a psychotic episode in that moment. So it's like, to your point, being able to have like the peer community support to be able to wrap around and be present for people in those situations, and as an extension of that, your peer and your community support, be able to really know, like, okay, what level of professional should we be engaging with at this time? Because if uh, I think the like formula is like to have both, to have the like trusted family members and community support who could respond to it, like you said, and be like, all right, we definitely need like psychiatric support to be able to like, or crisis support to be able to help with like this situation right now. And I think that to me seems like one of the biggest challenges And I'm gonna stay with and specifically in the Black community because tying in the policing part, it's like we're not trying to call 911 or crisis
Right.
just because I'm in, like that's the last people I want to show up. It's not that I don't think 911 has the ability or the resources to help me. It's that I don't want the police to show up and kill me or
Right.
or whoever if whoever we're calling on behalf on or whatever, right? So in Allegheny County, really the country, in Pittsburgh and throughout the country, I really don't I don't think anyone has figured it out when it comes to crisis response, particularly for Black and brown folks who have the strained relationship with police. They're
Mhm.
trying to couple, say, all right, we're gonna send a social worker with a police officer. And there's some I guess some data in some places that says it is producing positive results,
Mhm.
but I just think we do need to be mindful of like, okay, which community members or which friends are showing up,
Mhm.
which level of mental health professional is showing up, or calling or responding in these situations. So that was like the long-winded first part of my response. And then the second part is um social media is, I think they are being mindful of like if you type something in, they give you an opportunity to like if you type in suicide, it says, do you actually want to go forward and see these images and messages? Or if you are experiencing suicidal thoughts, click here and get resources. So just check. Instagram does that. Facebook owns Instagram. They do the same thing. We read an article earlier. TikTok is adding in some mental health stuff as well. So if you type suicide in your search engine in IG, it's going to bring you up that option, give you a little message, ask you if you need support. And if you click on the support or resources button, it brings you these different numbers you could call for crisis and mental health support. They have support for people experiencing eating disorders, veterans. I mean, there's like 15 or 16 call and text numbers. I just discovered this today.
That's it, real time.
Like I just found that out. Um, so there's that, and then the last piece I was gonna say, Mama Brown, like you see when people do a content warning or trigger warning when they post something.
Yes,
So
yeah.
that's I don't always remember it, but when I do remember it, I do it. So you could put content warning / trigger warning, dot dot dot, and then you can make a few spaces if you want. I don't always make the spaces, but some
Mhm.
people make put space in between content warning, trigger warning, and when their message actually starts. So that way,
Mhm.
if I'm scrolling and your message comes up and I see content warning, trigger warning, and you put the spaces in between, maybe I haven't gotten to your thing yet. So I can
Mhm.
say, okay, Mama Brown is telling me that this message is about to be heavy. So
Mhm.
I'm gonna either scroll quick by it or I'm gonna close out, you know what I mean, and come back in. So it helps people be present in the moment to make a conscious decision of if they are able to engage with the
Right.
potentially triggering content that you're about to share. So that's like a personal thing we could do.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Because a lot of times when we're posting during work hours. We don't know if people are at work, you know, or what's going on in their lives. So it gives them an opportunity to make a decision, to pause and take into account, what it could possibly be. Certain people we know, you know, on social media tend to have a certain type of posting, you know. And so sometimes, like, I'm gonna use young people for instance, high schoolers. Hate to put you guys in this category, but it happens where fights break out, right? And the first thing they're doing is videoing it and posting it, you know. And sometimes, you recognize the people in the fight. Sometimes the fights are so bad, you just like, oh my God, whose child is that? Are they okay? It's just, it freaks you out when young people post these fights. And sometimes they posting are not only of fights, but fights that have led to someone getting hurt real bad or dying. And they show the bodies even laying in the streets. Now, Instagram, a lot of them have been good about catching them where it doesn't get shared. But by that time, people are sharing of that same peer group. So it's good to have that, to not totally, I mean, I'm not, you shouldn't be posting things like that, but I'm just using graphic things. But if it's something that's graphic, like, my good friend, Wanda Cooper, who had to stay off of social media for a long time because she didn't want to see the repetitiveness of Ahmaud Arbery, her son, being, shot down on a jog through the neighborhood. But how many times have we seen that clip? A whole lot of times. George Floyd in the choking and the knee on the neck. How many times have we seen that clip? A whole lot of times. So, there's some allowable postings on social media that, is not always nice to look at. And so it's good to utilize, you know, this may contain some content that may be disturbing. It's up to you. But if you do proceed, make sure you're in a place that mentally and sometimes even physically that will, allow you to safely look at the content and at the same time is on your own terms.
Mm-hmm. Good point. It's an excellent point. And as we're going into the third part of this convo, Mama Brown, I think about how many times I've seen people post about being in, mental or emotional distress, or even posting suicidal thoughts and ideations that they may be experiencing at that moment. And it doesn't always happen. No, no, it doesn't always happen. But in a lot of instances, I've seen specifically on Facebook, right? Because Facebook is a different kind of engagement. I'll see somebody post, like, they'll post their stuff and how they're struggling and how, they don't want to deal with the pain anymore, and they'll post that message, like that reality, or that message to try to get some help, or whatever the case may be. And then you'll see a few, you see the comments start flooding in, and then when you sift through them, you'll see a couple people like, man, you good? Like, not like asking, are you good, but like, no, you're good, man. Like, you done been through this before. Like, you from such and such place. It's what we do. Like, so I think, what am I trying to say? A few things. One, it's important for us, especially as Black and brown folks, to believe people. Like, it's, if somebody puts a message out that they're having suicidal thoughts or in mental or emotional distress, that isn't the time to debate whether the level of distress they're in. Like, I just seen you yesterday. I saw you. Like, that's,
Mhm.
they are likely not even in the right state of mind
Right.
to even have that kind of conversation with anybody. So at that point, from my perspective, and again, comment if you have other another perspective or vantage point or viewpoint. At that point, I'm validating and acknowledging. That's all I'm doing. I ain't even trying to, if it's a crisis situation, I'm trying to respond in a way that's validate, acknowledging, but getting crisis resources and supports, as quickly as possible. But I'm not going in trying to disregard, or try to say, nah, you're good, because the reality of their experience in that moment is they're not. They're not good in that moment. So we got to get better at that. The second thing I would say is like we have to be very careful on what kind of recommendations advice
Mm.
we're giving people.
Yes.
You know, healing, helping can be harmful.
Yes.
Helping can be harmful, y'all. I'm an empath. I'm a social worker. I'm a giver. I'm a nurturer. But sometimes I have to be like, you know, Julius, if you dive in here, that is actually not going to help the situation. It's not going to make it. You might feel like it's going to make it better, but that's a me thing, right? So sometimes, like running to the rescue real quick is at least like be intentional about what you're bringing and check yourself like am I full enough, is my cup full enough to where I could even be present for this person, because sometimes it's not, your cup is not even, they don't even have a drop in it, but then you run into somebody else that's in crisis, and now you get there and you start talking about your crisis. Now we got two people in crisis and nothing we can do about it. So like
Yeah.
be mindful of if you're helping is turning becoming harmful for people.
You know, I got some examples of just what you're speaking of. You know, when I was doing the hunger strike, you know, there were people that were, you know, on social media saying, you know, they don't care about you. Just eat. They don't care about you. You know, you're not. You know, you're not eating is, you know, just for media attention, or you know. So if I'm in a crisis, right, and you know, me not eating, you know, because I'm in a mental health crisis, because again, you know, I am desperately trying to find answers for my what happened to my son. At the same time, I'm doing a hunger strike. At the same time, it's my First Amendment rights. But at the same time, I'm still grieving. So you have a lot of things. And when you're not, you're depriving your body, you know, it affects your emotions, your mental state, you know, your physical state, you know, the pain. It's a lot of things going through your head. So to have negative feedback, but they think they're being helpful because they're saying they don't care about you, just do this. That is not helpful. That's not helpful at all. You know, and so trying to encourage someone to eat or do something to go against their principle or why, you know, and basically you're not seeing me, you're not accepting me, and you're not validating my why. It's a lot of people that put clearly their why in words on social media about why they feel the way they feel, why they feel hurt, why they feel like, in these particular cases, wanting to take their life, wanting to end it all. But yet, instead of paying attention or acknowledging that, maybe, and I've read where feedback has came back and they said, well, look, if you're on social media saying this, then you're trying to do this for attention. That's not so. This might be their outlet of trying to reach out. Or they'll say things like, you're not serious. Won't you go? You would have just did it and not said anything to anybody. A lot of people don't understand when it comes, uh, they say that people who are serious don't open their mouth, they just do it. That's not true. That's, to me, that's a myth. That's a huge myth. There are a lot of people who have cried out for years, not only on social media, but just in their circles, even in their lifestyle. They have cried out, and we have not seen them. I talked about this yesterday on the platform. Half of the battle is just pausing and to see the person for where they are in the here and now, to not dismiss them, but to say, I see you. I acknowledge you. I validate your concern and where you are right now in this process. You are depressed. You are sad. You need these things to happen and they're not happening. I may not be able to make them happen for you, but I want you to know that I understand where you're coming from. And I'm not going to sit here on social media and ridicule you further for choosing this format to be able to express yourself. You know, that's why they always say if you don't have anything nice to say, just don't say anything because you don't know where this person is. And I'm willing to bet we've all been in situations where we have expressed ourselves and it has backfired on us with certain people. And although those certain people don't speak for the masses of supportive people, those certain people do matter. And it could be those certain people that null and voids all the support we get that really takes us over the edge. Like person who's struggling with with addiction, they'll say, "You know what? I'm so tired of you expressing how you're struggling here on social media. Just go ahead and or I think the word is take the gun, just go ahead and pull the trigger." Things like that. It's been very hurtful things that people have said, thinking that they're being helpful and saying, "Look, get over it." Is no, get over it is very unhealthy. It's very unhealthy comment to say to someone, and to call their bluff or on social media is very unhelpful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Mama Brown, I want to lift up a thing that you said that's so important. And I know for me, even being in this profession, and just when it comes up, outside of work, one of the biggest things that I am still working on, just personally and professionally, is being able to ground myself in these moments when people are either reaching out for support or they're expressing what they're expressing, right? Because and I'm a make this try to make this connection, y'all. And I know Black folks. I know we are not a monolith. I know we are different. I know we come in all different shapes and sizes and socioeconomic statuses. I know that, but we are healers, right? Like I think that's a generalization that I'm willing to embrace, that we are healers, right? And we've just always jumped into action, right? We because that's what grandma did with us. Like you got your best healing from
Mhm.
grandma. She stepped right up, right? It was like she didn't need no degree, she didn't need no book, she needed to diagnose you, but you left with that healing. Like it could just been a hug.
It could be her spit. Let me get that
Yeah,
over.
she didn't have to say nothing, right? So we know that we are healers. And wow, I think sometimes what can happen too is because we have so much pain individually and collectively as Black folks, that makes us want to be more, do more of the healing stuff, right? But if we're jumping in to try to provide healing and we're not at a state on a stable foundation, we haven't taken a moment to breathe, we haven't taken a moment to process. And mind you, that has to happen like instantaneously, right? Like if you're already grounded, somebody comes to you with something, it's a little different. But if you're in a not so good moment yourself, or not so good state of mind, and then somebody's like hits you up, right? We've all gotten them calls or them texts. Somebody reaches out to you and you are in major distress. So, it's like in them moments, it's like, wow, what do I do? It's like, should I communicate with this person who I genuinely care about and say, I'm sorry to hear you, this is what you're going through, but I don't have the capacity to help you right now, because that could make you feel like, damn, I failed. I failed my friend. I failed my loved one, who was reaching out to me in distress. But you could do the opposite and try to show up and not be your full self and
Mhm.
still cause harm and still be further depleted, right? So sometimes it's like we could acknowledge it, that that person is in need, let them know that we don't have the capacity to support them, but maybe recommend another support. And
Yeah.
then, what I mean, sometimes we gotta like, you gotta have the assist, what I mean, pass
Mhm.
it off to somebody else. Like, we don't have to save everybody individually. Like,
Right.
that's impossible.
Right. And to your point, this just popped in my head. I know a lot of spiritual leaders do this. They will say, you don't want to kill yourself because then you'll go to hell, you know, and, or, you will never make it to heaven, or, things like that. And I get where they're coming from. And it would scare me when you say things like that. But I don't know if that is a resource or helpful. It sounds, what's the word, Julie? It sounds,
Mhm. I mean,
but it just seems to me that I just have a problem with it.
it's like so
Yep.
I'm a zoom out a little bit and think about like punitive stuff, right? Like,
Yeah.
if uh yeah, it's like punitive in nature. So you're still not fully hearing the person, or like you said, seeing them and acknowledging them. Or it could be a situation where you get frustrated, right? Because you go through you're going through all the different things. I've had that situation. I've been on the phone with someone, they called at midnight and we stayed on till 4 or 5 in the morning because I was trying to solve it. I kept saying, I went through all the acknowledgement, right? I was like, all right, I was like, playing double dutch. Like, I'm gonna go through the acknowledgement, and then I'm like, all right, I done did that for 45 minutes. I'm about to offer you up a solution. And I offered up the solution, and they're like, I can't do that. Like, they were so stressed about a family relationship from decades of emotional abuse, decades of financial abuse,
Mhm.
decades of
A
um,
whole lot.
physical abuse, right? That was manifesting in this conversation at midnight, and after 45 minutes, I'm like, "Here's your solutions," and they're hearing and seeing there's potential solutions, but they're like, no, I still can't do that because there's still other stuff that I wasn't hearing. I wasn't fully acknowledging them. Like, they were acknowledged in a way that in that moment they were not suicidal anymore, and they
Mhm.
expressed that, but they still had some other stuff that they were like, I still need to work through and sift through this
Mhm.
stuff. So just know that even when you may be well rested, your intentions may be well, you may be saying all the right things, and it still might not be what that person
May
needs,
not be
and
what
it's
they need.
not a reflection of you or your worth. It's
Right.
just That's just the reality in that given moment,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. And at any time, we want to remind people throughout the show that if you find that you're yourself in a situation where you need to talk to someone, and Julius is not available to spend 5 hours on the phone with you, we want you to call the suicide crisis hotline, or text the hotline. We have all of those numbers and contacts in our feed. This is very serious, guys, because just listening to Julius, you know, we're in a society that we have so many stressors that is unbelievable. Some of us are multiple traumatic survivors, multiple layers, multiple traumatic survivors and traumatic survivors. Um, we have people who are, on substance abusers because of what has unresolved issues from their childhood, and that's how they nurse the pain. So we might have someone that has been molested and found drugs and alcohol as their escape, from their pain. There you go. You have two issues right there. Then it comes not loving yourself, not feeling good about yourself. Your self esteem has plummeted. There we go. There, self love. Thank you for the mug. Yes. Julie, do you want to give me
Shout
one
out
of
to
those mugs?
shout out to Jessica Gurley, mental health teas. She's got mugs, y'all. Self
Oh,
love.
yes. I got t shirts from her to go get me some mugs now. But I mean, and let me tell you, I raise my hand. I have transparent moment. I know what it's like to have low self esteem. I know very much what it's like to have low self esteem and not to feel good about yourself and who you are and what you mean to other people. Hey, look, raise my hand, transparent moment. I was in an unhealthy marriage for a very long time, and that can bring on other issues, you know and so and then just being a mom can be stressful, being a breadwinner, having responsibilities, being unemployed. I've been unemployed before. It's a lot of things that has a grief. People, hey, look, hey, y'all already know that story, but I say that to say that we don't always have the answers. It's not going to come overnight. It may not even come in a 5 hour. We would like to be able to solve, but when it's layers after layers after layers, it means that we have to implement layers after layers of help, treatment, ongoing therapy, patience, grace, and mercy. It's not overnight. These issues didn't develop overnight, and it's not going to be overnight in how we solve them. But what I do know, I want you here. I want you here so we can begin the work. I don't want you to check out in the process, because my grandmother used to tell me all the time, Danny, if you stop now, what if the best thing that has ever happened in your life is just around that corner and it's heading your way, but you can't see it because of the angle you're in? So sometimes we have to readjust our angles and allow ourselves patience and forgiveness and be open to saying, there got to be a better version to us. Let me just keep moving, keep going on to see what that is. I promise you one thing: there is always a better version of ourselves if we're open to it.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I agree. I don't think I have to say nothing else. um, yeah, we all, as always, appreciate y'all. If you still have any comments, any things you want to share, any resources, tools, leave them in a comment section. We see that after the show. You never know, you might share something that somebody else could benefit from and find value in. And I would just say, just Mama Brown, what you brought up for me as some final thoughts is that there is like so much power in fully listening to people.
Mhm.
I think I've been wrapped up in situations where I haven't been fully present and I haven't been like fully listening to people when they're talking to me. I thought that I was, but I just been giving them 80%, 75%. And sometimes, I don't want to say we should feel guilty for not being able to show up as our best selves all the time. But there is something about intentional listening and acknowledgement of people and really seeing people. It's
Mm.
almost like for me in my moments, my darker moments or my darkest moments, when somebody sees me, it's kind of like I'm like, wow, like you could feel when somebody sees you. So
Absolutely.
just that for me, what it does is it makes me feel like I'm not alone.
Yeah.
Because in those moments where I'm contemplating a different way, I feel alone. So
Yeah.
if somebody is able to acknowledge me in a way where it's like, no, you're not alone, and activate something in me where I feel felt and seen and heard, and
Hmm.
I'm like you said that, then I'm like, oh, well, I wasn't looking over there to see. It's a little more clear now that I'm looking that way. I was just looking this way and I can only see this. Now I looked over here and it's open now. It's not as foggy. And that person helped unlock that because they just sat with me and acknowledged me and didn't try to fix it, or didn't try to say, do this, do this, do that, or you're good. They just were like, they might even have said like, I don't really know what to say, but I'm here right now and I ain't leaving. So if you want to just sit on this phone and just not say nothing, then after a while something is just said, and then get your mind off of it. So just that presence and that full acknowledgement of I see you, I'm not trying to fix you, and I'm here is like unbelievable.
And that's a call to action right there. How about we find something about ourselves to fall in love with? Just something. I don't care how crazy it is. You don't even have to share with anybody. It could be your own little thing, your only own little it factor. Might not be a lot of things we like about ourselves, but if there's just one thing that we can find within ourselves to fall in love with, maybe we can start turning that wheel to accumulate more things about learning about ourselves that we find that is interesting to ourselves that we can embrace. One thing.
That's it. We're gonna end there. We love y'all. Appreciate y'all. Like Mama Brown said, love yourself. Find something about yourself to love and hold on to it.
Mhm.
See
All
y'all
right.
next week.